that put Columbia Pictures on the map, the European romantic sophistication that Ernest Lubitsch brought to Paramount, the stylish Germanic horror films made at Universal, the austere Rogers films and romantic comedies that floated RKO. Some of these films are visibly marked by the Depression, others seemingly not at all, at least until we look at them more closely. This book examines the rich array of cultural material, books, films, songs, pictures, designs, to fathom the life and mind of the Depression. But it also brings history to bear on these peerless works to understand where they came from, to listen to their dialogue with their own times. Great art or performance helps us understand how people felt about their lives. It testifies to what they needed to keep going. This is why we return again and again to classic American social novels, from Uncle Tom's Cabin, The House of Mirth, and The Jungle, different as they are, to The Great Gatsby and The Grapes of Wrath. Each, in its own way, enables us to feel the pulse of society from the inside. Dancing in the Dark, then, shows how the arts responded to a society in upheaval, and, at the same time, how they altered and influenced that society, providing a hard-pressed audience with pleasure, escape, illumination, and hope when they were most needed. No two views of the 1930s are entirely the same. The critic Alfred Kazin, who saw the 30s as decisive for his own life, expressed one deeply felt view many years later. "No one who grew up in the Depression ever recovered from it," he wrote in 1980. "To anyone who grew up in a family where the father was usually looking for work, every image of the 30s is gray, embittered." My own father was not scrambling for work then. He had a steady job throughout the decade, low-paying but decent enough for my parents to marry in December 1938. But he once told me that every Friday when he picked up his paycheck, he looked for the pink slip telling him he was laid off. This steady drip of anxiety eroded his confidence and instilled lifelong habits of caution, an undying concern about security so typical of the Depression generation. For him, these fears may have been there already, since my father grew up in a poor immigrant family, the son of Yiddish-speaking parents who never fully adapted to living in this country. As with the many writers who came from impoverished backgrounds, the Depression made him a specialist in economic anxiety. Unfailingly generous to his family, a devoted Union man, he remained thrifty, self-denying, pessimistic about the future, and very conservative about risk and change. Until his death in 1992, he followed the stock market every day as a spectator sport, but always averse to risk. Never invested a cent after pulling out in 1928. Not everyone looked back at the 30s in this worrisome way. In the 1980s, when I occasionally taught undergraduate courses on the Depression years, the first assignment was to interview someone who actually remembered those times. Students gained a visceral sense of what it was like to live through the period, but an even greater feeling for the variety of people's experience. Some had suffered, others had thrived. Some had been utterly wiped out. Others had bought businesses, properties, or even stocks at bargain rates and eventually did well. Many of those interviewed looked back at the 30s with unabashed nostalgia. They were young then, and remembered the period as the time of their lives. The price of everything was low. If you were single and unencumbered, you could live on almost nothing. Others insisted that those who had grown up amid post-war prosperity understood nothing. Hard times were bound to come again. Because the Depression was a national trauma, we have a mother lode of personal testimony, interviews and oral histories, reports and studies commissioned by the government, poignant letters to many officials including the President and the First Lady, memorable photographs, documentaries, newsreels, and other reportage. Few other periods of American life are as well documented. To gain support for unprecedented New Deal programs, the government, for the first time, sent out writers, photographers, and filmmakers to canvass the land. Newspapers and magazines also sent writers to do field work. Others simply explored